The Tundra will not stop me! Sure is quite the weather out there. I got knocked around in the Tundra. Well, now we're situated. So let's go ahead and get into NES Godzilla Part 3, Trance. I was still pretty shook up from the last level when I started Trance. Trance's map music did not do anything to ease attention. As far as how to describe it, have you ever heard the theme from Videodrome? That's the closest thing I can think of to compare it to. I checked to see who the new monster was, and it was Orga, a monster who didn't make his film debut until 2000, appearing in a game made in 1988. Well, so much for my theories about Titanosaurus and Biollante. There's no way this game was made in 1988. Those guys at Toho may be smart, but I'm sure they couldn't see that far into the future. If they could, they would have never given Roland Emmerich the rights to make a Godzilla movie. No, this had to be a hack of some kind, which just opened up even more questions. Who made this hack? When? How? And most importantly, why? The why was the question that bothered me the most. My immediate assumption was to think Billy did this to pull a joke on me. But that couldn't be right either. Billy didn't know how to make a ROM hack. And if he did, he'd probably just do something simple and stupid, like replacing all the monsters with crudely drawn genitalia. Unless Billy had some amazing game editing skills and a serious dark streak to his imagination that he never told me about, he couldn't have made this. Is it even possible to put a hacked ROM into a cartridge? Aside from all of that, my eye was drawn to a new icon on the map, a question mark. I was really curious as to what it did. I'm sure you're also curious, so I'll explain the quiz levels now, since this is when they start appearing. Refer to the link in the description. There is one of these per map from here on out, and they've always appeared near the start of the map. When you start on a quiz level, you appear on a screen like this. As you can see, there's a question at the top, a yes and a no button, and an emoticon in the center. I refer to the emoticon as face. Real creative, I know. And for convenience, I'll refer to the face as the one asking the questions. The music for the quiz levels is actually a track in the game. It's the one that plays when you try to use a GH1D0RA Eudora sheet and get sent to an unplayable level. Face asks you 12 yes or no questions, and you move your monster to the buttons for your answer. When you answer, the question disappears and Face changes expressions for about 8 seconds, and then it goes back to a neutral and a new question. Then he goes back to neutral, and a new question comes up. There is no time limit, nor any right or wrong answers. Face has no respect for the player's personal boundaries, and will sometimes ask deeply disturbing and personal questions. For example, do you like hurting people? Have you ever killed anyone? Other times he would ask questions that were either mind-numbingly stupid. Is the sun hot? Is the water wet? Or just flat out ridiculous. Does your dog like the president? Does your alligator like modern SpongeBob? As if I actually owned an alligator. Yeah, I wish. And maybe once per quiz, Face would ask you a question about the game. With one exception, Face's expression changes seem to have no effect on the game, except for indicating what the game creator thought of your answer. His reactions rarely made any sense, and at first I thought they were randomly generated. The questions never followed a pattern. Face never stayed the same on the same subject for more than 2 questions. Early on there were questions that made me think Face was building up to something, only then to ask some stupid garbage. Here are some expressions of face that I saw while playing. I'll separate them into two categories. The expressions I understood and the expressions that I didn't. Refer to the link in the description. First are the expressions I understood. Two of these only appeared once, numbers 1 and 12, and I suspected that they might have been in-jokes from the greeter. Their respective questions were, "Do you like ice cream?" and "Are you a tough guy?" For the questions in the first quiz, luckily, I had a notepad and pen handy. I have problems remembering things, so often I carry one around to jot things down. Sometimes I doodle in it when I'm bored. So when the first quiz started, I thought I'd record what happened. I'm glad I did. Here's the first series of questions. My answers, faces, reactions. I can't read all of these, just go to the Creepypasta wiki or whatever link I provided. Alright, now that you've hopefully seen all that, time for the gameplay. After the quiz level, I tried the new green template icon first. Wow, maybe this is why the game was so weird. One of the designers was clearly drugged out of his mind. Jokes aside, I was quite impressed by the graphics of this level, disorienting as they were, but I hate those creepy, blank, staring statue faces. The music had a hypnotic Indian techno vibe to it. There were two new enemies in this level. A flying ghost type thing with a trunk and a bat with a horse skull for a face. They appear at random, but I was lucky enough to get string caps on both. Then I proceeded to a Blue Mountain level, expecting another nice, calm stroll. I took my time walking through, and I was completely taken by surprise when this happened. Not Mogura came speeding towards me and took off quite a bit of health with his tentacle streaks. It only took me 2 minutes to kill him without having to worry about a time limit. But the boss monsters never showed up at the scrolling levels in the normal game. I was worried as to what the other rules in the game would break. After another Blue Mountain stage, it was time to fight Not Bear, whose replacement was one of the most bizarre things in the game. This strange creature attacks you by kicking and also opening up his chest and firing heat-seeking missiles. The missiles were sometimes a pain to deal with, but I found out you could tail whip them out of the way. Not Baron was probably the easiest of all the monster replacements. The same could not be said for Not Hedorah. Apparently the source of the horse bats, Not Hedorah was the most aggravatingly difficult monster to fight yet, mostly because of his special ability. He could shriek and summon a small form of those horse bat things. I know there's only 2 in the stream cat, but every time he did this, about 10 would arrive. The AI took advantage of the distraction and attacked twice as fast while the horse bats were flying around. Once that annoyance was over with, I went through a green temple level to kill some enemies, and to restore my health. Interestingly, none of the horse bats showed up after Not Hedorah was killed, and that's when I got an idea. Killing all the monsters makes a red face show up. What would happen if I avoid fighting Orga and go straight to the base? So I gave that a try. The game told me there was no monster there when I tried to start the base level, and immediately afterward, the game took control of my Godzilla piece and moved it in front of Orga. My little trick didn't work, so I tried to prepare myself for another chase. But first, I had to beat Orga. The fight with Orga confirmed another thing. Whoever created this game hack was clearly a Godzilla fan. Not only because they picked a monster like Orga, but because they actually implemented something that happened in Godzilla 2000 in a really neat way. Orga's primary attacks were a punch and a heat beam from his shoulder cavity. But once you got him down to half of his health, he did something new. He would expand his jaws and try to swallow Godzilla, in the process stealing their health and energy. But in doing so, he gave himself a new weakness. Firing a heat beam into his mouth would take a devastating 4 life bars off of his life meter. With that weakness revealed, I soon beat Orga, and despite how much I had hoped otherwise, a red face appeared on the map where the base was. When the music stopped, I readied myself as best as I could. I started the level, and seeing that I was basically the same as the first, I didn't waste a millisecond before I started hauling some ass. I soon encountered obstacles in the form of ground tiles suspended in the air. Most of them you could jump over or destroy, others you had to crouch under. About 40 seconds into it, I heard the horrible bellowing roar and saw a spider beast following close beside me. Behind me, I mean. Stacks of obstacles barely slowed it down. It would back up and then charge its way through them, smashing them into bits. And when the smaller obstacles got in its way, it expanded its jaws and swallowed them whole. I was afraid, but with fast thinking and faster button pressing, I escaped him yet again. I felt really excited, so I laughed and said, "Not this time, asshole." I decided to take a screen cap to celebrate. When I said that sentence, just before that level ended, the monster did something that made my blood run cold. It looked at me. That wave of mortal terror overtook me again, and I sure as hell wasn't laughing anymore. I took another screen cap of the next level title, right before I rushed to the bathroom and splashed some water on my face. And to take a piss, which I nearly failed to contain when that thing looked at me. Tune in next time when we continue into the next chapter, which is dementia.
Holy crap! It's Mecha Godzilla!